Hey, everybody. Hey. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's a joy to be with you today. I need you to get on over to the Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page. Yes, I'm over there. I'm over there. I need you to be my friend there. And please go to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Like and subscribe there. And please, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. And let's talk here on X at Santita J and at Santita J Show. That's right. Hey, Andre, sending you so much love, everybody. Come on in and put those thumbs up, those thumbs up. We're talking about the vote, and I guess we will be doing that for the next 3 weeks. What are the issues? How are the candidates doing? What more do they need to be doing? What maybe should they not be doing? I mean, there's just a lot. What should the surrogates be saying? Because the candidate can't do everything. The candidate needs people to be out there for them. And sometimes you don't need to wait on the phone call. You just need to go on and do it and make the case. As we were talking in the last hour, that became clear to me. That's something that Reverend Jesse Jackson has never waited for. He just would go out and do the right thing. Now, when he became a presidential candidate and got involved in politics from that vantage point, it was a little different because he brought millions of votes and voters with him. That having been said, he just, as you know, Reverend Dr. Wilson, because you hit the bricks with him, he just went on and did it and made the case to a doubting public, Ariel Cole, Fellowship of Reconciliation. Because we came out of each of those campaigns very disappointed, very let down, and very angry. Black people, his supporters, were ready to leave the party in 1988 because we had seen so much disrespect that it was just, we just said, enough. We need to get out of here. So we've been in these positions before. Reverend Dr. Todd Urey, Rainbow Push, senior pastor of the Douglas Memorial Community Church in Baltimore, Maryland, but a lawyer of increasing renown. I spoke with one of your, I was about to say patients, clients, and she was, I'm telling you, it was a Freudian slip, but she was extolling your praises, and that is wonderful. She said he is a beast in the courtroom. Wow. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. For advocacy for the people. We're talking about the vote, but you were also, Pastor Urey, kind of really moving from the conversation we had in the previous hour, where we're looking at the issues that are driving this campaign. If you look at Pew, if you look at Rasmussen, if you look at Gallup, the Pew studies, the Gallup and Rasmussen polls, whether these polls skew left or right, the common thread has been the economy and how people are feeling that they just don't have enough money for rent. I mean, mortgage, what's that? Uh, it's just groceries. Just so many things that people are talking about. And of course, over the past few days, people have been discussing President Obama and his comments and how would the vice president respond to them. Without explicitly saying so, she has really been, at least in public, really pursuing black men, pursuing them, just saying, hey, you know what? Let me tell you, this is what I plan to do for you. So just remember this, everybody. If you don't vote, that is a vote. Okay? You need to get involved. You need to be involved. And you need to understand that there are some people who are working overtime to block you from voting. We're going to have another showing of Reverend Dr. Todd Urey, Esquire, Ariel Gold, Fellowship of Reconciliation, and Reverend Dr. Jeanette Wilson, because you will be involved in it. Greg Pallas, who will be on shortly, is going to be our special guest. He's now family push. And he's going to be showing, he's going to have a showing of Vigilantes Inc., his new film in Atlanta. He's going to have one in Chicago. And we want to have a discussion with you. Reverend Dr. Urey, there's nothing like, putting flesh on the bones, if you will. Really being blocked from the right to vote is academic until you get to the polls and find that your name has been purged from the rolls. It's academic until you see people who actively work to get you removed from the voter rolls. More than 1 million people have been stricken from the voter rolls in Texas alone. It's happening all over the place. This movie will help you to see it. So, but let's talk about these issues too. And we got Dr. LaShawn Latrice. People just wanted to come back, and I said, I'm not mad at you. Let me start with you, uh, Reverend Dr. Todd Yeary. As you are pastoring, as you are lawyering, as you are out with people, and I would say, I dare say, as a Black man, what are you needing to hear? Or what, and as you talk to people, what are people needing to hear?
Well, that's a very deep question. It's very profound. What are folks needing to hear and what are they likely to hear are often two different things. And so sometimes you have to kind of figure out what's the nexus, what's the point of connection between what you are hearing and what you want to hear. Neither campaign is really getting granular to the point where you can be certain that your particular need, right, at Main Street level, is really going to be addressed. Now, there are themes. We're going to bring down prices. We're going to challenge folks who are trying to price gouge. We're going to try to create opportunities. But all of those things require another step. That's not something that can just happen by executive action. Much of what's being discussed has to occur by legislation as well. And so that then takes you to what happens the next step down on the ballot. Who's getting elected to the Senate, particularly around the enforcement questions that we often have, the appointment of judges, who's going to sit on the cabinet. That's the Senate level. When we talk about the issues of international affairs and treaties, that's the Senate level. What's happening with our foreign engagements, that's between the president and, in many instances, depending on what's going on, the Senate level. When it comes to monetary issues, right, what's happening in terms of the use of government funds, those initiate in the House. And so who's going to be amongst the 435 members of the House of Representatives? So part of what this is not just what we need to hear, but understanding what we need to do. A lot of what we've been talking about amongst my peers is making sure that people understand that this election is more than who's going to be president and vice president. So how do you go in with this very complex document that you're going to get? Many folks, for the first time, seeing this thing called a ballot. This ballot is going to have a number of offices, and depending on where you live, there might be state and local issues that appear on the ballot. There may be authorizations to spend public money. There may be, as in Baltimore, there's a big fight about a Black developer redeveloping a downtown parcel when we know in our conversations, we don't see Black ownership in any major city downtown anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so these kinds of opportunities make sure that our folks understand not just what's at stake in the election, who's going to be president, but what's on the ballot. And so what we've begun to do is to take the sample ballot and to make sure that as part of our awareness campaign, taking our Sunday school hour and walking through the ballot, not telling folks how to fill it out or what to fill out, but to help them understand the issues that are there. And so I think the issues you mentioned, the economy, those are issues of how am I going to make ends meet? How am I going to survive? There are concerns about basic decency and humanity and the international affairs going on in Gaza, the expanding regional warfare that is taking place over in the Middle East. And then more broadly, how are we going to deal with the unaddressed issues that were already on the agenda? Voting rights, police reform, those issues. We still have a lot of work to do. But elections are about contrast. It's not about what you get that's perfect. It's who do you get that's going to be practical around your issues. And I think that's the question that we have to be very clear and very honest with our constituents, that this is not a one size fits all, and it's not going to be a singular act that's going to solve all of our problems, but it has to be the next step in moving, bending that arc of justice in a way that's meaningful for all people.
We're talking with attorney Todd Yeary, Reverend Dr. Todd Yeary, Esquire, helping us to understand our vote. Dr. LaShawn Latrice, community psychologist. Reverend Dr. Jeanette Wilson, Ariel Gold Fellowship of Reconciliation. Reverend Dr. Wilson, what are you hearing from people? What are they needing to hear because it's just amazing that this race is so close, but it is close.
Well, I'm hearing that when you talk about Black men and voting, they really need to, and many people at the street level are looking for the investment of the campaign in their view. Uh, I could just see people printing their own buttons. We have a team
Mm-hmm.
in Push that are making their own T-shirts. The campaign could fund that, help them. And I think the money has to trickle down beyond all of the ads on national media. The people that we're trying to reach, students on college campuses, I will be having student get out the vote, show me your ticket parties on every campus, just that they voted, because the Gen Zers are the ones that can turn this election if they turn out in record numbers. I think that many people, as Dr. Uris said, they don't even know after they get past president what they're voting for.
Mm-hmm.
And I would submit to everyone that the state legislatures are up for reelection. If you look at Tennessee, they should be voting for more state representatives to make sure that the state representatives that are elected are fighting for funding, unrestricted funding for HBCU colleges, as opposed to taking control of the land grant colleges across the country. And so we need to know, who's your state rep. They're all up for election. Whatever state you're in, you have state reps running, state senators. They are setting tuition rates for colleges and universities that are state funded. Students want to change the food in the cafeteria. You need to be voting for state reps, and need to be voted on the campuses where they are attending school. We could turn the election with, if the students vote in Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, they can turn those states blue, or maybe even purple. But you have to know that the vote matters. If you're worried about the county jail system, you need to be voting for the sheriff, county commissioners all across. That when Reverend ran in '84, he turned counties around in Mississippi, on the 11 southern states, South Carolina, because he focused on those down ballot races. And that's what we have. Hey, Greg, how you doing?
Great. Glad to be with you.
He's always so excited. I have to get him.
He just rolled off of one show onto this one, so we're very happy about that, because of course on October 21st we will welcome him to Rainbow Push, Reverend Dr. Wilson.
Absolutely, we're going to be live with Greg Palace and Vigilante. If people have not seen it, Santita, it is so informative as to why people are trying to take your vote, how they're trying to take it. And Greg has to tell the story about the guy that worked with his whole family worked with Dr. King, and they removed him from the back. You have to see that story, Dr. Uri. You should show it at church during Sunday school. It's amazing.
During Sunday school.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they did kill those 4 little girls in Sirius Angel
in
Sunday school. Ariel Gold, before we come to you, Greg Palace, I want you to hear from the rest of the panel. Ariel, my beloved sister from the Fellowship of Reconciliation, it seems that these international conflicts are weighing more heavily on the American electorate than really maybe in a couple of generations, because now we have boots on the ground in the Middle East. We have always had them at the bases, but now they have been actually deployed to deal with that conflict. I feel like America's been boxed into this, and it doesn't feel good. But we've got the Congo. People thankfully are beginning to talk about that and highlight it. We're beginning to talk about Haiti. Haiti needs to be on the front burner, along with Gaza, along with the Congo, because we all have a hand in these things. Yemen, all of this. Whew, I'm exhausted already. But we're funding these conflicts, and sometimes we're not doing it in an overt way. Sometimes it's covert. But with the Middle East, with Gaza and West Bank, it is overt. We are underwriting this. So, we were just in Michigan yesterday. I was there with Congressman Jonathan Jackson. I went with him to campaign and for the Harris Waltz ticket. And You said that you are concerned about Michigan. I am too. Why are you concerned about Michigan, Ariel? Oh, you're still on mute.
Well, we're watching in the polls, and the Harris campaign is underwater in Michigan. And that has to do with the Middle East. It has to do with the Middle East, and it's only preparing to get worse. It was already in trouble because of the Gaza war. And now, with Israel having launched a full scale invasion in Lebanon, it was brutal what took place there yesterday. Just heavy bombing in a densely populated area. Well, Dearborn, Michigan is more Lebanese American than it is Palestinian American. And they came from the destruction that Israel brought in the 1980s. So Michigan is in trouble, and it's difficult for Harris to make that election map without Michigan. And she just hasn't been, helping us help her. We want to help her. We want to help her get elected. And we need her to throw us a bone to begin with. And, the clock is ticking, and it's getting later and later. And as you said, there are now U.S. boots on the ground in the Middle East. And somehow the MAGA folks have branded themselves as the anti-war party. Not that they are at all.
Oh, no.
Clear.
To be fair, many of them are fighting the wars, so they don't want their children to go. I mean, the folks on the ground, because what has happened is that the Republicans, but I'm just saying the Republicans have shifted. I don't agree with the shift, but they targeted working class people, and it's working.
Yep. And the rhetoric, right? They have the rhetoric. It's not the full thing, because if you listen to Trump on the Middle East, you have Kushner saying, let them finish the job. You have Trump saying Israel should bomb Iran's oil fields. So it's not policy that they're proposing, but they have a rhetoric. And the Democrats, I seem to think, have you lost your sight and hearing? I mean, come on, like, the American people do not want the most lethal military in the world. They are done with the forever wars. And the MAGA party has at least heard that in terms of what they're saying. And instead, the Harris campaign is just, hanging around with McCain and hanging around with Cheney and talking about becoming the most, being the most lethal military in the world. And those are not winning positions. They are not winning positions. So we need the campaign to help us so that we can help them. Because I'll tell you, I am real scared going into this election. Another Donald Trump presidency can really take this country under. So we need some serious campaigning and some serious help from the campaign.
But it could also force us to organize, because I have to tell you, Ronald Reagan was frightening to me as a young woman, as a teenager who could not yet vote. Todd, to have someone not 15 years after Dr. King's death have one of his opening campaign events in Philadelphia, Mississippi. He was throwing, that was such an explosive and incendiary act. That's one of the most gutting acts I've seen in modern political history. That was horrifying, where you killed Goodman, Schwerner, and Cheney just to wave that flag. And that is what he did. But we did organize. And then we came up with one of the most progressive movements, because we at first we were scared. Then we felt we got empowered. So I'm always going to keep hope alive. Before we get to you, Greg, Dr. LaShawn Latrice, the vote. What are you seeing from people? And how can we get them out there?
I'm just saying that people feel like they just need to be a little more connected to the campaign by hearing directly from the candidate. They feel like certain issues that are prevalent for our communities are not at the forefront of the conversation, and thus making them feel excluded from this entire equation. And I don't like the fact that many people are feeling like they should just opt out voting, period, because they think that their voices are not being heard anyway.
So, like, very quickly, what are some of the issues that the people you talk to want to hear about or hear from the mouths of the candidates and their surrogates?
People want to hear about the issues that hit home for them. There's a lot of conversation centered around the lack of police accountability. There's a lot of conversation centered around mass incarceration and the racial disparities that exist within the criminal justice system. There are also conversations about what's happening with housing and poverty, and how a lot of funding is going towards the migrant crisis. And our people who live right in our communities don't have enough money to buy adequate groceries and things like that. But those conversations are not being discussed. And then you have the people who can vote, but don't even know that they can vote because the conversation's never been geared towards galvanizing that group of people. And I think that's one of the missteps of the Harris campaign that they really could have fixed in the beginning.
And you know what? We're joined by someone with whom we will have a showing at Rainbow Push at our headquarters on October 21st at 6 p.m. He's one of the world's leading investigative reporters. Many of us have read his New York Times bestseller, The Best Democracy Money Can Buy. I think that's part of what's got people a little dispirited about all of this, Reverend Dr. Yeary, because people feel that there's, the money in politics is just, it excludes so many of us. You got to have $1 million to run for a congressional seat or raise it. And then you have to continue to raise money every single year. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot. But of course, there is a new movie. If you want to find out about your voting rights and the attack upon it, go to saveyourvote.org or gregpalast.com. But I'm going to tell you, once you see it, Ariel Gold, once you see it, as we've seen it several times, Reverend Dr. Jeanette Wilson, Dr. LaShawn Latrice, Reverend Dr. Todd Yeary, you really want to be with people because you want to talk about it. Because you will say, did you just see that? I mean, because when we showed it at the convention this summer, Reverend Dr. Wilson, people stood up and they were like, as soon, I mean, the lights were not up. People were like, look, what can we do? Because one of the things that this film, Vigilantes Inc., helps us to do, Greg, you don't just drop the problem just at our feet. You say, no, there's something you can do. You have a lot of power.
Oh, yeah.
Not one, you have so much power because they want to take your vote from you, but give us an overview of this movie. And we're so glad that you're going to be with us.
There you go.
We love Greg.
That might be backwards on the screen.
No, you got it.
Okay. The film is, my name is Greg Palast. The film is Vigilantes Inc., America's new vote suppression hitmen. Vigilantes Inc. And why is it called Vigilantes Inc.? Because for the first time since the Jim Crow era, since 1946, an old Jim Crow law, which is on the books in 43 states, says that I can challenge you. I can say Santita Jackson does not live in Chicago. Don't count her ballot, or don't let her vote. Don't give her a ballot. And if she sends in a ballot, don't count it. Now, what do you mean? Just some self-appointed vigilantes. But here's the danger. They took it. You'll see in the film Vigilantes Inc. I want you to meet Major Gamaliel Turner, at the 70-year-old African-American career military officer. Our narrator, Rosario, the wonderful Rosario Dawson, explains that he's one of the Pentagon's top experts on what's called warfare of the future. Now, and so this man was not allowed to vote. This American career military officer, African-American, his ballot was challenged. He didn't get his ballot in the mail. So he calls up the voting rights office. I mean, not the voting rights, he calls up the elections office in Southern Georgia and says, where's my ballot? They said, oh, Mr. Turner, you've been challenged. He says, what does that mean? He says, well, all you have to do is come in and prove you're an American citizen and show us he has a home in Georgia, show us your address, and you can vote. And he says, wait, you're telling me that all I have to do is fly 2,700 miles and prove again that I'm an American citizen? He says that I know what this is. It's Jim Crow. It's just a fancier form of how many jelly beans are in that jar, then you can vote. It was, and he was on a list of 4,000 voters challenged by one man, this vigilante, who's a Republican Party official, not a government official, a vigilante, self-appointed vote fraud hunter. He submitted 4,000 names and said, don't let these people vote. Who were they? Mostly, the list was mostly African-American soldiers from Fort Benning, Georgia, who were assigned to other military bases. Now, I got to tell you, Santita, and I got to tell this distinguished panel that, believe it or not, soldiers are allowed to vote absentee on military ballots. They're allowed to vote, even if they're a black soldier, they're allowed to vote. That's, we're forgetting this. So they did in Georgia, 88 vigilantes, every single one a white Republican Party official, and I'm not being partisan about this is the facts, and they challenged 180,000 voters in 2020. They took this for a test drive. Now, what you're going to find out so this is the story of Major Turner, and as you said, his father, the Reverend Harold Turner, was co-founder with Ralph Abernathy and Reverend King of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. They picked on the wrong guy. So he actually flew 5,000 miles round trip. He brought in Kamala Harris's actually attorney, Mark Elias, flew in from Washington, D.C. He had to go to federal court to get his one ballot counted. And by the way, the court would not allow those 4,000 others challenged. All those other black soldiers lost their vote. They all lost their vote. And still Biden squeaked by in Georgia, even without those black voters who were challenged. But here's the ugly part. Number one, the Georgia laws changed so that one of the reasons why Biden was able to win is with the film Vigilantes, Inc., we were able to convince even Republican voting officials not to accept these challenges. But Georgia laws changed so that the local elections boards cannot stop these challenges. Worse, this thing is spread. What Mark Elias, who's the new voting rights attorney for Kamala Harris, has said, this is the virus out of Georgia that could destroy this election. It could take away your right to vote and overturn this election. So Mark Elias has said the virus out of Georgia has now spread. We now have not 88 vigilantes in Georgia, but 40,000 vigilantes have signed up with this one Trump group, this Trump Front organization called True the Vote. 40,000 have signed up. As of 2 months ago, they had already challenged Santita 851,000 voters. They're clearly now they've said they're way over 1 million challenges. 98% of those voters have no idea that their ballot has been challenged. And even if you get a mail-in ballot and mail it in, they're not going to count it. So you have to be very aware of two things. Number one, watch the movie. I'm not asking you to do much. Get some popcorn. It's a movie. It's actually an entertaining movie. As all of you have seen it, so you can verify that. It's a movie narrated by Rosario Dawson. By the way, produced and introduced by my favorite president, President Bartlett. That is Martin Sheen is our producer. And as he said, they're going to challenge, as Sheen says in the film, they're going to challenge 2 million people. And most of those will be voters of color, almost all Black, Hispanic, American Native voters, and young people. In other words, the color is blue. But they're targeting communities of color because they know that's where the Dem votes are. And it's always easy to say Black people cheat. We have a clip in Vigilantes, Inc. from Birth of a Nation, which is the 1920 Ku Klux Klan propaganda film, and where they have a white actor in blackface sneaking in a second ballot. And that's what they brought back. The Ku Klux Klan claim against black voters that they vote multiple times, that they're stuffing ballot drop boxes. And they're using this as an excuse to challenge voters by the hundreds of thousands, mainly in Georgia, Arizona, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and a few other states. So we're talking Again, as of 2 months ago, 851,000 voters challenged. Please go to saveyourvote.org. Not save Santita's vote, not save our vote. Save your vote at saveyourvote.org. And there, thank you, Leonardo DiCaprio, who set up that website for us and is paying for you to watch the film for nothing, at saveyourvote.org. But the most important thing is at the top button before you get to the film is check your registration. Check your registration. And we also have the number for Rainbow Push, for Transformative Justice Coalition, Black Voters Matter, NAACP. If you run into trouble, and there's a number there for teams of lawyers to help you out. Don't assume. I know what you're going to say. Oh, I've been voting at the same place for 25 years. So what's my problem? Why do I check my registration? The answer is watching the film. I'm in Atlanta when an elderly woman, 92 years old, in a walker, been voting at the same voting station for 50 years. And they said, get out. You're no longer on the voter rolls because you don't live in Georgia anymore. I went to the house that they said she didn't live in down the street from the polling station. And there on the wall was a picture of her having dinner with her cousin. Her cousin was Martin Luther King Jr. and who came to Sunday afternoon lunch after services on Sundays. If they can knock off a 92-year-old cousin of Martin Luther King, they can take away your registration. You better be prepared to fight the vigilantes and inform everyone you know, especially in all those swing states. Go to you can go to gregpalast.com, but you can also go to saveyourvote.org. And by the way, if you're listening in Atlanta, that we will have a special showing at the Norcross Cultural Center in Atlanta on October 25. And hopefully we'll have the whole gang there. I'm hoping CK will be there helping us launch it. And we'll have Gerald Griggs and other of the voting rights leadership. So we will see the film in Atlanta on the 25th. And very much, please join me and Santita at Rainbow Push headquarters on Monday. That's the 17th, Monday at 6 p.m. at Rainbow Push. That's at 50th and Drexel. And I'll be there. Santita will be there. And you'll be there because we're going to have a fun discussion, watch a great movie, and I'll make sure you get some popcorn.
Well, I tell you, because Reverend Dr. Uri, we've talked about this before. Several years ago, the Republicans said that they were going to deploy 50,000 people across the country, right? To watch the election, to challenge the election. And now we're here. And we have to be, no pun intended, vigilant about this, because I don't know if we know how real this is, Reverend Dr. Uri.
Well, I think many of us do. I think what's interesting, if number, that the objective of challenges. Now let's think about it. The spread on the popular vote last time was more than 2 million votes. Mm-hmm. The vigilantes are clear that these challenges have to be targeted and specific to certain states, not all states, but the states that are going to determine who wins the presidency. We know that these states come down to about 7 based on the way the map plays. We know that many of these challenges are going to occur in states where the margins are tight in the old Confederacy. Georgia, now North Carolina's in play. We know that's a big issue. You will probably see, we saw them before in Michigan. There was a big issue the last election in Michigan on certifying. And you just had a ruling come down yesterday that a Fulton County judge said you avoid certifying the election because there was already a plot to figure out how to work around whatever the numbers might be so that they can delay what they're ultimately after. Let's remember how the presidential election works. It is not one thing. It is 50 state things that lead to the election of electors who then determine who gets elected president. And that is so critical. And I believe this is part of the plot. And I'd be interested to get Greg's thoughts on it.
Absolutely.
Is that if they can delay and avoid having, in many instances, either candidate have 270 votes by the deadline necessary for the Electoral College to meet, does that trigger the constitutional crisis of sending the election of president to state legislatures? And all you need do is look at the mix of the state legislatures in terms of how many of them have super majorities of one party or the other. Right now, they lean Republican. There are more Republican state legislatures than there are Democrat. That becomes an issue. And I think it is going to lead to a particular legal issue that's going to come down to not what happens on November 6th, but what happens the day after the Electoral College is supposed to convene, because I think that's where you can see the scramble of litigation actually happen in this next election.
Oh boy, yes.
What would that look like, Greg?
Okay, so that's why you got to see Vigilantes, because you'll meet a tremendous woman, Helen Butler, Mrs. Vote. She's like the voting expert of Georgia. And what Brian Kemp, who's the Republican governor of Georgia, and now he's, he had a tiff with Trump, and now they've kissed and made up. He and Agent Orange are the best of buddies. And
now, don't call any names, but he is as dangerous.
Yes, very dangerous. And here's the danger: not January 6th. Go to gregpals.com. You'll read my latest article. The riot is going to happen on December 11th. That's the deadline for governors and states to formally issue the names of the winning electors. So they're doing everything in their power in Georgia and other swing states where they know that Kamala Harris will actually win the vote. And they're trying to delay the count past December 11th so that they don't have to report out their electoral vote. If they don't get it in to the archivist by December 11th, they lose their electoral votes, and they want to lose their electoral votes. If Harris does what Biden did and wins in Georgia and wins in Arizona and wins in Nevada and wins in Wisconsin, you're going to see attempts by these legislatures to stop to challenge the electoral votes. All these vigilantes, they said, oh, look, we had 851,000 people we've already challenged who are illegal voters. This is our excuse not to submit the electoral votes. And if they don't, there's no electoral votes in that state. So I'm looking at Georgia. And then on the 17th, the Electoral College, the actual winning members of the electoral vote, have to meet in their capitals. Get ready for riots to block the capitals with Molotov cocktails. The Proud Boys. Roger Stone's out there. He was let out of prison, pardoned by Donald Trump, this felon. And then he immediately became a leader of the Proud Boys. Why do you think that they're doing that? Look for the riots on December 11th and December 17th in the capitals to stop the submission of the Electoral College votes. So Helen Butler explains that as a voting official, she could say who votes, when they vote, which votes count, and more important, certify the election. So Brian Kemp removed her from the elections board. He used special powers under new law to simply remove her, even though she's the top expert in the state on voting. And so, and she's in the film. She's with me. She and I, by the way, sued, as you'll see in the film, we sued the state. We sued Brian Kemp to get the list of the black people he's removing from the voter rolls. Now, so look out for those dates. That's why you want to see Vigilante. It's a great warning. It's an entertaining way to warn. And make sure you send out that link to everyone you know in Georgia, Arizona, Michigan, Wisconsin, etc. Everyone you know, empty it all to your contact list, your massage circle, your party organization, whatever. SaveYourVote.org. Check your registration. Watch the film. No charge. Thank you, Leonardo. And, so, yes, these are dangerous. The election will not be over on November 5th and 6th. It will not be over. It's going to be fought, and it could be very, very violent, especially on those dates.
And we've got to tell the story. I mean, because many of us are not expecting that. We know there's something, we just don't quite know what it is. But I would like to know, with those givens, what can we do now?
Plenty. By the way, I should mention something very important. As you'll find out if you go to SaveYourVote.org, we give information on how to protect your vote. If you show up at the polling station in Wisconsin, Nevada, North Carolina, and Michigan, Wisconsin, you can register on election day. Now, the nice lady behind the table, if your name is missing from the voter rolls or there's a challenge, the quickest and easiest thing to do is say, well, I'll re-register right now, then give me my ballot. They usually don't tell you that you can re-register on the spot. You can demand it. And
Hold on, Reverend Dr. Yuri. Is
Yes.
that when you call vote.org? I mean, you call 1-866 Our Vote, but is that when you call them to get the legal help?
For folks to get the legal help, right? That number's one.
Okay, well, you're cutting it.
They'll all be pointing.
Excuse me, Reverend, are you wearing earbuds? You might need.
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay, because you were cutting in and out. Okay, please.
Yeah, I left the earbuds in my pocket this morning. But yeah, they all sites should point you to a very good, confident, working number to address any issues that you have at a polling place on that day. There's a whole network in place just to protect what happens on election day.
Ariel Gold, I mean, what are you seeing? Because you are part of the activist community. And there is a lot of activity, no pun intended, in the activist community, particularly with respect to Gaza. But, we've been talking about the Congo, Yemen, Haiti. It seems like everything's on the table now, right? Are people even thinking that they might go to the polls and not find their names there? Okay, you're still on mute. Okay.
That's not conversation that I hear taking place, which worries me, right? And I think there's so much going on right now in the anti-war activist community that a lot of folks aren't thinking about the election. They are really focused on what's happening. And when Biden first dropped out and Kamala came in, there was a lot of excitement and hope, and I think that's really drizzled, and we see that in the polling. And I want to see her break from Biden and really move into her own and come out more bold and forcefully and re-energize this campaign. We're in the home stretch. Give us something to get excited about. Like, give us something to talk about.
Reverend Dr. Wilson.
Well, I think that she has a difficult challenge. She is the first sitting vice president to run while she is vice president. And she's been very careful not to throw Biden under the bus. So she's kind of...
Well, wait, since Humphrey, right?
Pardon me?
Since Hubert Humphrey.
Yeah.
Right.
First female ever. And so, it's a difficult dance. I understand what Ariel is saying and, what other people are suggesting. I think that that's where surrogates have to really push hard on all of the issues. And I think she will address them. If you compare the two, she's going to address most of these issues much better than her opponent. And I think one of the things that I'm noticing as I watch him in these various rallies, he's just totally unhinged. So when you talk about physical fitness to serve, there's also mental fitness to serve. And that's the danger that is overwhelming my concern. And now the media is finally beginning to pick up some of this stuff. I mean, they showed Biden stumbling up and down stairs, but the lack of mental acuity that we're seeing now, they have ads on the news, on the air, suggesting that there should be a mental fitness required for every presidential candidate because you're dealing with some serious issues here. I do think, to Ariel's point, students on college campuses across this nation are focused on Gaza and Jerusalem, and she has to deal with that forthrightly. The second thing is you can't, abortion of reproductive rights is not the main issue for many people. So I think that she's beginning to shift to look at the economy, but it has to be a lot more granular. One fair wage, people working 3 and 4 jobs just to earn a living. I think she does have to talk about down ballot. These state legislative races are essential, and she has to worry about a Senate so that she can have any ability to move any legislation forward. And I think the rest of us have to really teach the American people civics 101 real fast, because we don't know what the Electoral College is, and we don't know who they are. These are some unknown people, and we have to share with people what the deal really is about, our federal election and how it works and how it impacts them. Students need to know you can be concerned about Gaza, but you better be concerned about your college campus. Mm-hmm. It's the rules that are being promulgated by state legislative bodies that will impact your ability to have freedom of speech. And so there's just a lot of ways that you can get people encouraged, but they need to know the power that they have. And I think we should be inviting, every campus needs to show vigilante.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, before I come back to you to close this out, Greg, Dr. Latrice, are people even understanding the threat to the vote? Because wait a minute, because I have to put her on blast, Greg Palast. She's one of the people who said, we've got to show this movie again. Yeah. So we're doing this in part for you, Dr. Latrice.
I really appreciate it, because as I've had these conversations since I've learned of the movie, there are many people that aren't aware that it's even possible to be purged from the voting rolls. And they don't know the importance of checking, nor do they think it's possible that people can walk up and take them off the ballot immediately. So I think showing the movie and educating people from that perspective will let people know the importance of staying connected to the process of the election. And also, like Reverend Jeanette said, when we think about the Electoral College, many people are aware of the Electoral College. They also use that as an excuse to say, well, that's probably why my vote is not going to count anyway, because they think the Electoral College will just override them. Whatever their preference is will be superseded by the Electoral College. And oftentimes when we just don't stay plugged into certain things, and it's a lot of disconnection for various reasons. People feel like, okay, we're not talking about the real issues, we're just bickering back and forth. But I think that there has to still be some direct connections to the community where they can see that Kamala is someone that they may be able to trust. And I think that's what people are questioning right now, just based on certain things not being addressed head on.
Well, I tell you this, Greg Palast, politics is so personal. And I think that's something that you cannot miss. And the politicians the elected officials who resonate most profoundly with us, Reverend Dr. Todd Deary, Dr. LaShawn Latrice, Reverend Dr. Jeanette Wilson, and Ariel Gold, are those who really know how to tap into us, into where we live internally. That's why we're so eager to really get the word out about this movie, because you talked to people we all know. And I think that sometimes as Americans, we don't realize just how much power we have, Greg. We have no idea. And this movie, to me, really brings it home. Greg Palast.
Well, here's the good news. You can't steal all the votes all the time. So vote. Yeah, it's rough. And you may have to, for example, Major Turner flew 5,000 miles. His question, he was just on the phone with me just now. He said, my question is, if I flew 5,000 miles round trip, what are you doing? You say it's too inconvenient. You had to get to the 7-Eleven, or you go walk in and your name's not there. And you say, well, forget it. And you walk out. No, you don't. You demand that ballot. You call you call it. And again, it's Save Our Vote.
Save your vote.
Save your because no one's going to save your vote.
You've got jet lag, Greg. It's okay.
Yes, saveyourvote.org, and you can get the 866 Our Vote number. It gives you the check your registration. It gives you all kinds of resources if you're getting into trouble. But again, get informed. And all I'm asking you to do is get some popcorn and watch a movie and spread out the link. Save your vote. And Monday, I'm going to see you there at Rainbow Push with Santita Jackson. And we're going to have a discussion about this film. Reverend Jackson wants to see it again.
He does. He
Yes.
does.
And
he wants everyone to see
and
it.
he wants everyone to see it. That's really important.
Yeah.
So we're inviting you. We can have a discussion about it. What do we do next? You can protect your vote. And it may take, like, for example, in Georgia, Joe Biden would have lost that state if not for the fact that we had tens of thousands of people who were shunted, and almost all voters of color in Georgia shunted to provisional ballots, and people had to go into their county offices to show their IDs and get that ballot counted. It's work. It's work to have, but it's your government. You're hiring someone who has a really important job to do for you. And you wouldn't just, if someone said, oh, okay, well, I don't care who my doctor is, whatever, I'm not going to choose. Yeah, you better choose. You better choose. And I know, okay, so young people and some groups in Michigan don't like Kamala Harris because she's no miracle. Well, her answer is 5 letters, TRUMP. You think you're going to do better under TRUMP? Now, I'm not partisan, but you got to you have to make a choice. And you can't go into McDonald's and order sushi. You got Trump or you got Harris. You make your decision. Who are you going to hire to run your nation for you? You make that choice. And I think after you see Vigilante, because there's one other issue that we have to talk about, really big. We don't want to make this the last election. Now, they're not going to cancel the future elections. They're just going to put in, for example, Agenda 2025 out of Heritage, which is Trump's roadmap, actually has a whole section in there encouraging and requiring states to allow vigilante voter challenges. That's what's going to happen. And you're going to have all these vote suppression laws, everything from ID, they want to make you prove you're a citizen. How many people even have such papers? If you don't have a passport and you don't have a original birth certificate, well, how do you prove you're a citizen? And even military people, that doesn't count. There's some non-citizens in the military and waiting for their citizenship. So here's the problem. We might not have another real election after this if we have this vote suppression trickery put into federal law. And I got to remind you something. Latasha Brown of Black Voters Matter, whom you will find in our film, she and I were lecturing in Harvard, and someone asked me to define vote suppression. Remember, if someone steals your car, you don't say, my car's been suppressed. It's been stolen. So what is the definition of vote suppression? It's called shafting Black people out of their vote. That's what it means. That's your definition. Let's get real about what it means. It's not something polite. And you read the New York Times articles, and they talk about vote suppression. They never talk about the color of the people suppressed.
Well,
and
wait a minute, then. So why are you concerned? Because you're obviously not Black.
Well, if you meet Major Gamaliel Turner, as you will in our film, I don't want that to ever happen to anyone else. That man here's a tough, macho military officer, and he was in tears about losing his vote because he knows the history. And I come from the poorest barrio in Los Angeles, from nowhere. And I can tell you, the only way that they could do that to us and dump us in this horrific barrio, I was between the sewage plant and the garbage dump. And the only way I was dumped there is that it was done to us. And they had to take away our votes. They couldn't let us vote, or we wouldn't put up with this stuff. So number one, every other right, whether you're talking Gaza, healthcare, you name it. You're talking about student loans, you name it. It touches every aspect of your life, and it all comes down to your right to vote. You lose that, you have no other rights. So you're going to watch this film, Vigilantes Inc., by going to saveyourvote.org. Stream that, send it out to everyone you know. And Monday, I will see you there with Santita at Rainbow Push, Monday night, the 17th at 6 p.m. And we're going to watch it and talk about it. In Georgia, we'll be there in Atlanta on the October 25. I'll be tomorrow night in Madison, that's the 17th at the Barrymore Theater. And so there's many places for us to discuss this, but I want you to watch the film and I want you to protect your vote. That site, saveyourvote.org, gives you all kinds of voter protection contact information. It's your job to save your vote. That's my lesson. I'm just asking you to watch a movie. Come on, how difficult is that?
Let me tell you, when you see the movie, as you have Reverend Dr. Yuri, as you have Reverend Jeanette Wilson, as you have Dr. LaShawn Latrice, it really is going to get you fired up. There's nothing like seeing the people who are trying to undermine your rights. This is not academic, Dr. Yuri. This is real. This is real. And every vote matters. You are more powerful than you even know. Please, everybody, get registered to vote in the places where you have same-day on-site voter registration. Go to vote.org and check. Because if you can still get registered to vote, go on and do it. But if you, like Daniel Perez, he's DACA, so he can't vote. But he's one of the most engaged people in the chats because he knows all this impacts him. We're all in this together, everybody. Please come out to Rainbow Push October 21st at 6 p.m. at 930 East 50th Street in Chicago. You don't want to miss this movie. It is something else. I'm Santita Jackson, Reverend Dr. Todd Yuri. Keep on lawyering, keep on preaching, keep on inspiring. Reverend Dr. Jeanette Wilson, you do the same thing. Keep on lawyering, keep on preaching, keep on inspiring. Y'all do the same thing. And Dr. LaShawn Latrice, thank you for keeping us together and helping to make us well as a community. Because we're only as strong as the person who is struggling. And Greg Palast, what can we say? The author of the New York Times bestseller, The Best Democracy Money Can Buy. And of course, the documentarian who's bringing us this movie, Vigilantes, Inc. You've got to know who these, I heard John Perkins wrote the book about the economic hitmen. Well, you've got some voter suppression hitmen, some people who've already removed 1 million people from the voter rolls in Texas alone. They had a goal of 2 million. I think they're going to surpass it. Unbelievable. Everybody get involved. I'm Santita Jackson, sending you so much love. May God bless you real good. Have a wonderful day.